pray with me? God, we do praise your name, and as we do, we would ask with grace that you would open up our minds and think with them. Open up our mouths and speak with them. Open up our hands and work with them, and open up our hearts and set them on fire with love for you and all of creation. Amen. It's been good while it lasted. It's been a good 5-year run, and I guess it was somewhat inevitable. Our 5-year-old Rowan son has finally become acquainted with superheroes. And this year of 2019, when Batman celebrates his 80th birthday, and Marvel Comics has gone off the charts, Rowan has finally succumbed in the smallest of ways to this, what I consider sometimes overly materialistic and overly commercialized influence of the Robins and the Wonder Womans and the Black Panthers. I'm proud to say his first superhero introduction was last year on sabbatical when we were in Scotland, and we gave him a small Lego that had a dragon figure connected to it, and we named it together Dragony. Little did he know, no one else knew about that superhero named Dragony. But that's been his focus and still is. And I think he's learned from Forrest a little bit about Catboy and some other probably non-traditional superheroes here at church. So I'm grateful for that. But again, through Halloween and the influences of school friends and other influences way beyond the church and his parents, the reality of superheroes has taken hold. I'm grateful that Spider-Man is one of his favorites at this point, and spiders taking their lead, at least from nature. He was in a nature camp the past couple weeks, and he learned there that spiders are not insects, if you remember that. Glad you know that. I'm just remembering this. There's just a lot to learn from superheroes, but one of the things about superheroes that I think about is that superheroes do not leave to-do lists. They get things done, right? They go down their to-do list, keep Wakanda hidden from the outside world, keep vibranium out of the hands of bad guys, find a telephone booth to change into, avoid kryptonite, rescue civilization as we know it, save the planet. These to-do lists get done by superheroes. So if that's the definition of a superhero, today in our scriptures we learn that Jesus is not one of them. Jesus does not finish his to-do list. Notice as we begin our reading from chapter 10 of Luke, we hear of this famous appointment of those 70 to go out into the world. But the reason behind it, Jesus sends them out to finish the work that he has not yet been able to do. They finish the work of Jesus. Tell those that you encounter that the commonwealth of God is near. Go on your way. Jesus instructs them. He did not get to go to all those towns and places that he had intended to go, but in doing so, he instructs his friends to go lightly, don't be weighed down, take nothing with you, focus more on people than on things, leave behind your purse, your sandals, go lightly into the world. Now, while this command resonates with that call to simplicity that reverberates throughout our scriptures, there's an additional overarching message here that Jesus is not saying don't take the superfluous with you, don't take the extra stuff. He's saying don't take the very core necessary things that you need to live on with you. Don't even wear sandals. Leave your feet exposed to the world so you can rely on those who welcome you. Jesus wants to define the entire experience of mission, of going out, the entire idea of being sent out into the framework of interdependence. While he gives 70 a message of God's commonwealth to share, the real desired outcome is that they go and spend some time with other people, to go out and be invited into their homes with the word of peace, to break bread together on their knees. Jesus tells them to remain in that same house, eating and drinking whatever they provide, whatever is set before you. I know a lot of parents have said that to their children, eat whatever is set before you. This is the word of Jesus, the word of radical reception of hospitality. He wants his followers to see that God's commonwealth is at hand, And it's all about mutual vulnerability and dependence. Jesus wants them not only to see this, but to experience it, to taste it by the receiving of a homemade meal, and to feel it by sleeping on the couch or bed of a stranger, to embody it by going where their feet lead them, to get dirty on life's roadsides, which allow you to have your feet washed by others. We hear that Johannian image lifted up here. Agape love should be very much in the disciples' mind. Jesus is directing them and all who would follow not only to show hospitality, but to receive it, to become dependent, to be reminded that others depend on you. This idea of family, this idea that's so simple yet to our world right now is a radical refrain and a challenge to see that we are connected. For out of this hospitality, remember that life is sustained. The followers of Jesus are fed and sheltered by strangers, and in turn, they give the power to heal others. Hospitality, its root, we remember from the hospital etymological root, becomes the forum for life and transformation. There is salvation where there is community. There is liberation where there is communion. This past week, I had the privilege of helping to lead this year's Eco Stewards program in Richmond, Virginia. It was about 10 degrees hotter in Richmond, so enjoy the coolness of New England this day. One of the core concepts of the Eco Stewards program is to bring folks in their 20s together in a particular watershed for a particular time to be hosted by those in that watershed who exist at that nexus of faith and the environment, spirituality and the earth. This place-based education model relies deeply on hosts and hospitality. Churches open up their fellowship halls and kitchens to us. People open up their schedules to meet with us and to share their stories. And time after time in these encounters, in the place of hospitality, life-giving transformation rises up. If not directly, the life-sustaining experiences of storytelling encourage each other and one another to rise up in the place of life-giving sustainability. I'm sure many of you have been in different places. You have experienced being hosted. You've been outside of your norm. The candle that is missing from the upper communion table today reminds us of our NICA delegation that is right now being hosted. Maki, Faith, Tim, Debbie. They are experiencing that radical welcoming of Dulce Nombre de Jesus, our sibling in faith, our southern expression of one church. I can still taste the rice and beans that Concepcion cooked to Becky and I for meal after meal when we were hosted by them and by her. There's something transformative in the experience of being hosted. It's an awkward feeling often for those of us who see ourselves as doers, sometimes human doings and not human beings. It's humbling to be reliant on someone else, to trust someone else, to be open to someone else. Of course, these are aspects of what it means to love. Last week, our Eco Stewards core leadership team was hosted by an inspiring ecumenical community called Richmond Hill, existing on one of the highest hills in Richmond, which was once Nottoway or Cherokee. It's debated territory at one point. This place has long been a sacred rock in the midst of Richmond, a place of prayer. This community was founded just weeks after the Civil War ended. If you recall that Richmond was the capital of the Confederacy, after Richmond fell, some nuns came from New Jersey. They felt called by God to go to pray for the reconciliation and the reparation of Richmond. And they founded a monastery right there on top of that hill in that sacred space, as they were invited to do. And Richmond, as we know, has a long history of racism, not unlike every other city in our country these days, but it is perhaps a little bit more visible in Richmond. There is a whole boulevard dedicated to monuments, Robert E. Lee, Stonewall Jackson, and many other Confederate figures, right there in the middle of downtown. And the week we were there, the day after we arrived, the day before we arrived, Arthur Ashe Boulevard was named for the famous African-American tennis player from Richmond. The whole boulevard renamed in his honor. This was no small deal. Our own representative, Ayanna Presley, was there to name this, renaming, as part of the reconciliation and reparations that are needed in our world today. Richmond Hill was a place we found incredible hospitality. It's also a place committed deeply to environmental justice, as is our Representative President. For friends, the challenges we face right now are similar to what Jesus names as the wolves. I am sending you out like lambs into the midst of wolves. See, I'm sending you out as contemplatives into the face of places scarred by war. I'm sending you out to pray in the face of the deep racism and white supremacy that still plagues our city. I'm sending you out with candles against strong winds to fiercely witness against the sinful practices of separation at our country's borders in these concentration camps. I'm sending you out into this world because my message is still relevant today. Take nothing else with you. Don't go armed. Don't go with hatred in your hearts or retaliation in your mind. Go with a word of peace and reliance on my presence. Go as bold witnesses to that truth, that I am in the world, that I am always with you. My commonwealth of grace, reconciliation, and life-giving transformation is at hand. I go before you always. Jesus sends the 70 out. Jesus sends us out. Notice that Luke says the 70 come back to Jesus with joy in their hearts after having been hosted, after experiencing God through their listening and through their speaking. I would imagine they were inspired because of the many stories they heard around dinner tables in the homes in which they were hosted. I imagine they saw through the differences and commonality at the root of all of humanity. We were incredibly gifted this past week to hear some stories through the sharing of eco-faith journeys in Richmond. And one story I want to name in particular was told by a once participant in the eco-storage program, now leader, Beth Roach. Beth is an incredible human being, deeply spirited, deeply gifted. She is a tribal council leader in her Nottoway tribe. She is a practitioner of the Longhouse religion, and she is filled with spirituality and care for the earth. And she loves eco-students. I don't know how and why, but she does. And she shared in her story that for the first time, she came to her full self-identity 2 years ago through the invitation to tell her eco-faith journey. A random thing like this small grassroots program allowed her to come together as her full Nottoway self and as her full spiritual self. And we were able to listen to that and to honor that. She has then gone on to become a part of an environmental justice council for the governor in Virginia. She has spoken on the steps of our nation's capital. She is a rising rock star in our world right now around the nexus of faith and the environment. And she carries forward her story. Stories are powerful. Her story is powerful. The stories of those that hosted the 70 are powerful. The story of the 70 are powerful. The story of Jesus is powerful. Friends, the commonwealth of God is near, even in the face of the sicknesses that those 70 must have encountered, even in the face of the to-do list that even they probably didn't even accomplish. The commonwealth is at hand in the face of injustice, in the face of death. Yes, this past week I've been inspired by stories, but I've also been stopped, as many of us were stopped. It was Anne and Sarah who first texted me that Elsa was actively dying, and that stopped me. That stopped a lot of us in the midst of our stories, in the midst of our week. Friends, a light has most certainly gone dim, as somewhere between Sunday evening and Sunday morning, our beloved sibling Elsa slept away into the peace of God's eternal grace. There's no question she will be missed. Already she is missed. She left us too soon. There's no question she had a lot more life and vigor left in her. And now, as Jesus says, her name is written in heaven. While many of us have been aware of the changes for Elsa since this past August, many of us have not seen her here in worship since she stopped coming to church. Those closest to her are shocked by this radical change. We name especially Riney in the midst of this. Partner for some 53 years, paired up with her as one of the 70 sent out into the world. I got to be with Ronnie this week, and the pain is real, the tears are real, that welled up together in those eyes, and there was a reminder of the togetherness that we are connected to with it. It was hard, but also beautiful to see Elsa's rings tied to a chain around Ronnie's neck, reminding him of that continued embrace of her in his life. And in that space, Ronnie shared that he felt he was the one who was supposed to go first, not Elsa. That's not the way this should have gone. We know that experience. We know that voice. It's not the way life is supposed to go. And into the heart of that disorienting change that comes as a part of the overwhelming parts of grief, Ronnie again wowed me by speaking from that grounded and pastoral ministerial place that we all know so well, about how much Elsa gave to the world. He spoke repeatedly about how professionally she inspired others. Many of us may not have known the depth of her professional success, a rock star indeed that Elsa was in the ways of speech pathology, in helping treat people with Asperger's syndrome and autism. Ronnie spoke about how a pioneer Elsa has been in that. And Ronnie also, from that space of grief, spoke repeatedly about the accompaniment this church is and how much that means to him and has meant to them over this past year and the past few years since she was first diagnosed with lung cancer. Ronnie, Tom, he specifically wanted you to know how much you mean to him and have meant to both he and Elsa, the way you have accompanied them and brought them into the choir and allowed this choir to become much stronger than the individuals and the individual voices that you each are, but together bringing more joy into this world. Ronnie's memory is beginning to slip in these days, but he is deeply grounded as well. He even brought out some of that Ronnie humor in the midst of our conversation when I asked Ronnie, is there anything specifically we as a church can be doing right now? He said, I'd like to see my pastor. He pointed at me and laughed. So we took care of that to-do list. But Ronnie also, again, just said thank you for the prayers. And he is well kept. And as I was leaving, Ann and Sarah then came in as well to that same space and broke bread together with Ronnie. I think it was clam chowder that you guys brought to him. And became one together. Yes, Elsa has been a rock star for us, but she would be the first to admit that she was no superhero. Her to-do list was not accomplished. There are many things left on it. She didn't wear a cape, but she certainly was superhero-like. But she left a lot of things undone, just like Jesus. Many things left undone. So Jesus sent the 70 out. I wonder if Elsa is sending the 70 out just now. I wonder if we can hear her invitation for us to go on our way. Remember, we would never know Jerry Owen if not for Elsa. Not Elsa just inviting her to church, but Elsa going out into the world to meet Jerry in the professional circles that they traveled and serving others in the ways of speech wholeness and wellness. And then through that relationship coming together. I can't imagine Church of the Covenant without Jerry. Friends, what other transformation in the few next years that we have and that we're given might we envision the community looking like, given our going out? Our community will not develop, our community will not grow, if not for the stories that we tell, if not for the voices that we bring into the world, not just to invite others in, but for us to go out. To let ourselves be hosted in spaces that are challenging and new, to experience food that we may not have made or ever tasted before, to break bread together, to be like Elsa, to be like Beth Roach, who, out of her newly inspired connections around earth and spirituality, has started something called the Native Seed Alliance, where she's saving seeds. Some of these seeds are 4,000 to 5,000 years old, Her vision is to save these seeds and allow others to plant them and to grow them. These are disease resistant. They go way back in time. They're far more nutrient than many of the seeds Monsanto and other places have put forward into our food economy. It's a radical work. It's hard labor. It's volunteer work that she's driven by this vision. So friends, may we go out and save seeds. May we go out to share stories. And may we go out to be that unique voice that God has given each of us to be, inspired by the likes of Elsa and Beth and the many others who go before us, announcing that the Commonwealth of God is at hand. We have tongues and talents to employ. So we get to sing that song next. It's in our black hymnal, hymn 347. Hymn 347 in our black hymnal. I'd encourage us to stay seated in solidarity as we sing this hymn, 347, Let Talents and Tongues Employ.